Well, good morning to you on this Tuesday, October 8th. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you a little behind the scenes of what it's like being an event photographer, especially for those of you that don't know that outside of my YouTube channels that we do here, I have my own photography company and have been doing this since 2007, 2008, covering different kind of events in the St. Louis area. And one of the events we've been doing for, pretty close to 10 years, it's been a long time, is covering the MoCowbell Race here in St. Charles, Missouri. Usually it's kind of like a marathon, half marathon, 10K, 5K, walk run type event, kind of a party atmosphere, but you have serious runners, you have runners that come in dressed up in different kind of costumes. Super fun event. And my job, I'm hired by the company that puts it on, EDC, to basically cover and photograph from a marketing point of view. We're not the company that does the official uh finish line photos. There's several photographers that are at the event, especially at the start finish area. And although I do take a lot of photos of racers that are coming through finishing the race, we're not specifically there to photograph everybody. That's a whole nother company that does it. We handle primarily the marketing photos, so the things that they will use to market for the race down the road in future years. And one of the guidelines that we have, and what I tell my photography team that's kind of stationed throughout the race, is we're looking for emotions, facial expressions playing to the camera, people having fun, showing just the diversity of runners that are at the race, but just trying to get the whole party vibe atmosphere. And we've got photographers that are stationed. uh, I'm usually at the start finish area. We're there from I get there about 5 in the morning or so, and then we go until about 2 o'clock at the start finish line. And then I've got a photographer that's stationed at Newtown, and then one at Veterans Memorial Bridge. So trying to get the various looks and the different locations of the race. So what I thought would be kind of fun, I'm sitting here this morning doing all the editing on at the start finish line, and I thought, well, why don't we do a little video of part of the editing process that you go through from a photographer's point of view. Now, as you see here, and I work in Lightroom Classic, part of the Adobe suite, and I've used this for ever since I've been a photographer and had my own company back in 2007, 2008. I love it for managing and organizing my photos, and then doing like 90% of all the edits. There's some cases where you have to take a photo into Photoshop, and that's for certain kind of things. But events like this, Lightroom does a fantastic job because it allows you to uh, batch edit, batch organize a lot of photos, go through and process them. We're kind of triaging the photos here. When we first get back from an event like this, what I do is I immediately upload it to the computer so that I have two copies or an additional copy of all of the photos, just in case something were to happen. Now, when I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark IV, and it has the ability to record photos as you're shooting them onto two memory cards. So in real time, you're getting that backup image. So in case something were to happen to one of the cards, you still have one of those cards to where you can access the images that you take. And then the first thing that I do is, when I get back home to my office, we get those uploaded onto the computer so that we have an additional safety valve redundancy system, as some would call it, of all of the photos. And then we get those imported into Lightroom. So my responsibility on Sunday was to cover the start and finish area. So that is kind of like the runner's village where all of the tents are, um, where the medical staff is. So basically, where everybody starts and finishes the race. And just to give you an idea of how many photos that I took just in my location while I was there, and I'm bouncing back and forth between the two windows here just to make sure that you guys are seeing everything. Let's scroll down, and 2,544 photos. Now, am I going to upload finished images? 2,544? No. So this is the next step in the editing process that I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you the entire thing because that'll take forever. Those of you that photograph or are photographers, you know that as like an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is actually being at an event that you're photographing, and then most of your work is done after the fact when you get back into the office for editing. That usually takes up most of your time. But I'm just going to show you what I do, what I look for on these images when I do a big event like this. So we get all 2,500 photos loaded up. And what I want to do is quickly go through on a first pass and get rid of any really bad photos or redundant photos that, because when you're shooting events like this, you have your camera usually on burst and you're taking multiple photographs of something happening in front of you. And when you have it on burst, you're able to basically have a selection of whether it's 3, 5, 10 photos of something happening there in front of you. And hopefully within that burst, you're getting 1 or 2 really good shots of either a runner crossing the finish line, throwing their hands up, getting the right facial expression that looks the best on camera. So I don't want to necessarily send to my client all 10 photos, let's say, of an individual runner kind of doing the same thing. I want to pick either the top 1 or 2 images and let them kind of decide, depending on how they want to produce their marketing, either pamphlet or online social media stuff, because they've got to put graphics up and all that good stuff when it comes to marketing and social media. I want to give them options, but sometimes you can provide too many options. So the first thing that I do as a photographer on something like this is I go through and cull as many photos as I can. So basically what I do, and I've already kind of started the process. You can see here on the screen, all of the photos that you see this black flag here with the little X on it. Those are ones that I have flagged to get rid of. And so, for example, if we were going to go through, and I'll show you some that we've kind of started. These are some of the photos that I took right from the beginning that morning, right before the race started. This is about 7 o'clock in the morning or so, 7:21. You can see it's a little dark, and we'll go through any of the photos and fine tune those later on. You don't want to fine tune all of them at the front, right? You want to go through, delete all the ones that you're not going to use. And then on the remaining ones, that's when you go through and start editing, fine tuning those images. So what I do is I go through and just with my arrow key, and these are your keyboard shortcuts within Lightroom, I arrow over so I can quickly go through, and then any of the photos that I come across that I don't like or that turn out blurry, I immediately hit the X button. So you see here's a perfect example of the editing process. We come here, 2 identical photos, virtually identical photos. One is in focus and one is not in focus, very soft here. And again, at 7 o'clock in the morning, you're not dealing with a lot of light, even though you crank up that ISO on your camera. to get that shutter speed as high as it can go. Any kind of quick movement, whether it's by the subject or the photographer, moving the camera just a little bit, is going to introduce a little bit of blur to your photo. But here's 2 images. I don't want to upload both of these. I don't want to work on both of these. So as I come through, I'm going to X this one image out, move on to the next one. That one there is kind of a redundant. It's a little soft, so I X that one out as well. So that's just what I'm doing. So that one there, that's a great shot of some runners getting ready for the race, getting their photos with the big sign in the back. We're going to keep that one. The next one after that one, it's a fun picture. Again, I'm getting the emotions that I want to get. I'm getting the whole vibe of the race, people wanting to get, the MoCowbell sign in the background in their selfie. But this one's a little soft. So I went ahead and X that one out so that when I go through the entire process of the 2,500 photos at the very beginning, come up with hopefully a large percentage that I go ahead and X out that I can just delete right off the bat, and I don't have to worry about those. So that one there, you see the 2 here. That one's in focus. We want to keep that one. That one's a little soft, so we're going to X out of that one. These 2 images here, although they are different, this one here, great group shot, showing everybody getting in, getting ready, but it's a little too soft. That's not an image that I would want to have as my final image to where I need to fine tune that one. So we're going to go ahead and X this one out. This one here of our announcer for the day. It's fine because it's kind of shown behind the scenes of what the announcer was doing, but it's not one that I just, from shooting this race for over 10 years, for 10 years or so, I know the marketing team that's going to go through the photos. This isn't going to be one they're going to want to use. I'll have some other ones later on that I remember shooting. So we're going to go ahead and X that one out. This one here, and just in case, that one, just in case it's a little sharper. That one's a little soft, but I could have used it if I wanted to. This one here kind of shows her face a little bit more. I'm just going to go ahead and we'll keep this one, and then we'll let the marketing team decide if they want to use it or not. So that is what I am doing as I go through all 2,500 photos. And I try to do it as quickly as I can because I want to get to the editing process to where we make them look really good, because that's going to take the most time. This here would probably take me a good 2,500 photos. I would say between an hour and a half or so, depending on how many breaks I take sitting here. So something like this is just a different angle of the photographer, but she's got her hand there in her face. And I'm like, oh, we're going to go ahead and X that one out. So she's got her hand down. We're going to use it. Again, knowing that I had some of the photos of her during the race doing that, we'll keep those for later. So we're just going to kind of scroll through, and you can see a great shot here. One of the runners there showing off that muscle definition right in front of the MoCowbell sign. The photo is nice and sharp. We're going to go ahead and keep that one. And then, this one here, I know I've got some other ones that the image here is a little soft. So I went ahead and X that one out. Great shot here. One of the runners with the mohawk there getting ready for the cowbell. So again, thinking in terms of a marketing photographer, anything to where I have something kind of branded in the photograph of one of the runners. So got a runner here busy on their phone, sending messages, checking things out, but then they've got the start finish facade or sign behind them. So it's kind of branded for MoCowbell. And we're going to go ahead and keep that one there. So one of the pacers getting ready. We're going to keep that looking back towards the camera. I thought that's kind of a cool shot. We'll go ahead and keep it. This one here, I believe that's from Big River Running. One of the guys from Big River Running. I see him all the time at this race. I try to get a photo of all of the companies that are working to put on this race as well, just in case that there's, in marketing, you just never know what you want to show. Maybe you want to show the team of companies that help sponsor and put on the race, And so we have photographs of people that are doing that. I think I've got some other big river running people later on. This one here is just a little too soft. So here's one of the pacers again. You got the racers lining up behind them. So we're showing, this is a big race, lots of runners. I believe they had a record turnout this year, 5,400 racers. So great turnout on what was kind of a warm day out here in St. Louis, St. Charles. It was probably, in the 80s. And for a race you get pretty overheated quick. So again, what I do is I just go through and I'm looking for interesting photos. This one here's two that are somewhat identical, to the point to where I'm like, well, let's just pick between the two. Cause again, I don't want to overwhelm the person that's going to have to go through all of these later on in their design when they're picking out the photos. So between these two, sometimes it's a 50-50, and sometimes there's just something that kind of strikes you a little bit better from a photographer's eye, or something's just slightly more in focus. So that's what, we went with this one here. Another one with the racers. So here's all the marathoners lining up for the start, which started at 7:30. We got them lined up, and you can just see it just goes on. Well, I mean, all the racers that are behind just the line here. Now, of course, if you go through, let's see here. So there's the first image of this particular set. And you're getting a lot of 1, 2, 3. You got 4 images of basically the same thing. So I just narrowed that down to the one that I thought just looked the best. And again, if it's a matter of they're almost identical, the quality is good on both, we just randomly 50-50 pick one. So for me here, usually what I'll do is I'll look at facial features. Are more people looking towards me and towards the camera, maybe than in some of these other ones? So it's a matter of kind of preference to see which one you're going to keep. So of the 5 images we shot here, we're going to go with this one. So, something like this, when you're running and gunning and you're shooting, you're going to come up with photos like this. You want to make sure that you're not going to batch upload or try to batch edit something like this later on. So we mark it as getting rid of it. Cute photo of this family here supporting their runner, Mark. Looks like Mark is the runner who's this little girl's dad. One of the things we try to get when we're doing these races is the people that are out to support the runners, their friends, their families that bring out the signs. So that's one of the big things that we try to capture as photographers. You can see here 2 photos almost identical. This one here, I think it looks like maybe their grandma is looking off towards the kiddo there. So this one here, she's looking more towards the camera. So I just picked between the 2 to keep the one where she's kind of looking this way. Go through some more of the signs. Again, here's another one almost identical. So it's a matter of let's pick between the 2 to get the best one. So we always try to get a lineup of the, first couple rows of the runners each time we've shot the race, with the big sign in the background. So, this one here, several photos, the same thing. And sometimes it's just like, well, maybe there's a couple that I want to keep just in case. So of the 4 or 5 photos that look almost identical, we're going to go ahead and keep a couple of them. Just the idea is you just want to reduce as many as you can. There's Chuck the cow. And for those of you that are like the MoCowbell, that sounds like the old SNL skit. I believe that this is what the race was actually named after, from what I'm told. So we have Chuck the cow that's there every year with his cowbell. He doesn't have it here in this one, but he'll have it later on in the photos. And so as the racers get ready to start, you have this pent up energy that you can kind of see people getting ready to race. And it's just a matter of, again, going through and keeping the ones that you like as a photographer that are sharp enough, and then to get rid of the ones that are redundant or that are a little soft or whatever. And sometimes we will focus on the MoCowbell sign, and some of the racers will have some intended blur, or we will affix the focus to be on Chuck the Cow, and then the sign and the racers will have a little bit of blur there also. So a little bit of artistic, options there for the marketing team. So this is basically the workflow that I do as we go through. Something like this where Chuck is in the middle of the racers as they're going by, which is a harrowing experience if you have never been in a costume where a bunch of racers running at full speed are blowing right by you. There's only been 1 year, I think, where somebody actually like knocked into Chuck. But usually they do a pretty good job. There's just when there's so many people there and you're right in the middle, it's hard to maneuver around. Plus everybody's looking at their watch or setting their watch and their timers. So it's hard to see Chuck sometimes. So being in a costume where your visibility is limited already and your back is turned to the racers that are racing past you, you get a little nervous. So something like this, you can see here, a great shot of, you still see Chuck and the runners around him. So we kept that photo, but then on the next frame, you can see a runner's head kind of gets in front of Chuck. And I just decided, well, let's go ahead and X that one out. So go through until you see one to where you can kind of see Chuck in the midst of all the runners. Again, we want to show that there's a lot of runners here, a lot of action, a lot of faces. We got the branding again, MoCowbell in the back, got Chuck in the middle, which is focus. So we're going to keep that one. That one there, you see enough of Chuck. Let's go ahead and we're going to X that one. Oh, there's a great one there. So you can kind of see Chuck and Chuck smile, still see the racers there. So, and you get some motion blur from the racers around him. So you can kind of see the action. So we're going to keep that one. So basically this is what I do. And you can see how it takes a long time, a very, very long time to go through. I mean, sometimes I go back and forth between images just to see, okay, we're going to A/B test between this one and this one. And between those two images, Chuck is kind of covered. So we're going to go ahead and X that one out. Now I'm going to go ahead and scroll to where I was initially in my workflow because we were a little more than halfway through. There we go. We were on photo 1746 of 2500. And so here's an example where I A/B test between these two images, which is a stronger image, and almost identical. This one here that we ended up keeping, the runner in the middle there, the guy 2132 has his arms up, showing emotion as they're crossing the line. So we love seeing that. We got all the flags of the people represented in the race and stuff in the background. This looks fantastic. And then the one we decide to X and get rid of is one where his arms are down a little bit. So we've got plenty. This here, that's a great shot. This one here we're going to go ahead and get rid of. So now we're kind of live to where I was at. So between this guy here, when you start photographing runners, there's a stronger pose than others when you capture them running. There's a certain way that the legs are when somebody is running or even walking that they look kind of cool. And there's one to where it doesn't look as good in the photographs. So you can kind of see here between the two, that right there is a much stronger image than this one, right? That's a runner's kind of a pose there. And this one here is where they're coming down with their weight down, with their foot coming down. Not as good as that photo there. So we're going to go ahead and X that image there, 1748, and then leave 1749. So this one here is another one to where if we A/B test this one, that's a much better pose for this runner, number 13, versus that one there. So we're going to go ahead and X that one. There's another one there, but that's a good photo. And sometimes, you know, for me, and depending on how good the monitor quality is, you got to really, you know, I'm on the lookout for, is the subject that I'm trying to capture, are they in focus enough? This one looks a touch soft. Plus, I don't like the pose that she's in, so we're going to get rid of that one. That's a better pose for a runner. Let's keep that one. Arms are going up. Smiles are always great when you're shooting these races. Keep that. Here's an example of, okay, we get some side lighting from the sun on here, so that looks really good here. And then on here, it's just a different kind of a lighting to where, you know, do we want to keep that one? You know, if we're looking at these three, what's the more dynamic of the three images? I mean, again, if I have to think too much onto whether I should keep it or not, I just keep them and then let the marketing person decide later on. Because again, I don't know how they want to produce some of their marketing materials. So I want to give them as many options as possible without overwhelming them. But they're going to be overwhelmed no matter what, because it's, again, not only my 2,500 photos, but it's my other two photographers that are out there at their locations that are going to turn in their photos too. So here's one throwing up the rocker sign in front of the flags. We'll keep that. That's a good one. Let's get rid of this one here. That's just it's the weaker of the three photos so far. I love the girls with the ponytails as they're running and whipping around. That's always good for a photo. That one here is kind of soft. If you take a look, it's just not very much in focus. So the tracking on the camera had a hard time. I mean, when you're dealing with racers, anything at high speed, and trying to track them coming to and from your camera, when you're shooting so wide open to where you have that blurry background, you got to have a really good tracking system on the camera to track them, and steady hands. So sometimes as they're moving around, you're moving around as a photographer, things just get a little soft. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this one. That's a great shot there. You know, so as a photographer, if I was going to want to highlight this photo, I would definitely, in the very end, I would zoom in and get her a little more centered up, or however I want the final image to look. But I try not to crop any of my images when I turn them over, because again, the marketing team may need some of that extra negative space around her to add in some text or something. So we want to give them option. That's right there. Okay, so great example, two different looks. And, you know, if I was concerned with not having enough good photos or of a particular runner, I would keep both of them. But I've got plenty of images that can satisfy what we're looking for here. So of the two here, I thought this one was great. This one's even better. So we're going to go ahead and X that one out, and we'll keep this one. That's a fantastic photo. Again, we got people dressing up a little bit. Let's see here. That one I'm not crazy about, so we'll X that one. Another one here, runners throwing up, you know, pointing to the sky as they're coming through. Keeping. And of all the ones, her visor's kind of covering her eyes. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this one because we're keeping 2, 3 other photos. The same thing. This one here is kind of soft. Again, always looking for emotional faces This one here, all three of the ladies, I think they're all together. So they're all running as hard as they can to finish. We're going to keep that one. That's a great shot, just looking down the finish line there. This one here between the two images here. Let's get rid of this one because I think that one's a little bit stronger. Okay, this one here, love it. Right in front of the flags, which is a great spot to take some of these shots here at the finish line. This one here is a little soft, so that's easy to get rid of. So this one, this one, this one. So I like the ones here with these three with the little bit extra sunlight on her. This one's kind of flat. Again, I can be picky because I have multiple photos to pick from. We're going to get rid of this one too. Gentleman here, a little blurry. I mean, again, diversity of runners is what we're after to show people that all sorts of people come out and race in this. I like that one better than that one. This group here coming through, I think they're just kind of pushing each other to finish strong. So I'm going to keep all of those. This one here, I like this one of the lady looking forward as she's getting ready to cross. Big smile on her face. This one here, I mean, just this one's just a better photo of the two, right? So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Good shot there. This one here, she's a little soft, focused. So we'll get rid of that, get rid of that. That one's slightly soft. Let's get rid of that one. This one, not crazy about either of those. That one's soft. That's a good shot there. Runner's nice and focused. A couple holding hands as they cross the finish line. Those are always great. That's a little soft. And what you want to look for with couples that cross like this is a lot of times as they cross, they'll give each other a big, huge hug. So you want to be ready to capture that hug, because usually that's when the emotions come out when they finish a big race like this. This one here, they didn't do that, or I didn't catch it. But two almost identical photos. So let's pick between the two. I think this one here just looks like a stronger image than this one. So let's get rid of this. So something like this, people are gonna be like, well, Brian, you've got a runner kind of in the front, which is kind of distracting for some people. The way I look at it is I've got some foreground objects here. So we have the railing and the timer on the left-hand side of the image, the runner who's kind of blurred out, but it's not the subject of it. My subject is the group of runners behind her, runner number 1460. And I'm going to keep this one just because I think the way you can frame this, it looks kind of cool. Is because you have the foreground, midground, background on this. So it shows a lot of depth. So we're going to go ahead and keep that one there. And photographing and editing, very subjective sometimes. Very subjective. 1, 2, 3, 4 images here of this lady that I'm trying to get 936 in her cow top. 1, 2, 3. So the question is, okay, of all of these, which is the stronger image of her? And to be honest, kind of the same to me. So I'm going to get rid of 3 of the 4. I like that pose a little better than this one, so let's get rid of that. It's a little soft. The image that, or the expression that you're seeing here, is one that I really like, especially with runners. Uh, Even though her eyes are closed, it's this feeling that you see from a lot of runners where they have given everything that they had to get this race done. Again, it was a very warm day. This 22:44, she is exhausted. She has just crossed the line. So this image here is one that just shows that she's put everything out that she had. So very, I mean, great face. I love getting great face at the with my images at these things. So this guy here playing to the camera. All these images are great, so we're gonna keep them. Another one here is where the runner, maybe mom here, has just got done and her kiddo comes over. So you see a lot of the runners that will just, they've got to just lay down, take a seat or something. The kids come running over. So we kind of show that again, trying to capture all of the experience of the race. So not only people that are in progress of running, but the ones also to where they're finished, and then this is their support team to come see them. There's the medical staff that they had on hand here at the finish line, so that any of the runners, as they come across, they can identify to see if they need help. So on warm days like this, there was, we had a few issues to where even myself and maybe some of the other photographers at the finish line were kind of the tip of the spear for triage sometimes, just because there's cases to where the medical staff are busy with other people and somebody needs attention as they come through. So we sometimes get involved with that and just helping out and trying to alert the medical staff to get up front to help out. Throwing hands up is always a good thing. Again, showing some kind of emotion here. These two images, very, very similar, but that's a stronger running pose. So we're going to keep this one, X out on this one. That one's a little soft. We'll get rid of that. Some of the costumes and headgear people wear to have fun. Again, trying to kind of document what goes on behind the scenes. We have runners, strong runners that come through and then their calves cramp up so tight. I mean, very painful. And they'll cross the finish line. And luckily they have SSM health people on staff there at, just monitoring runners coming over and helping them out. I think this guy here was down for a good 10, 15 minutes. I mean, could not move. And so if you see the lady, the SSM healthcare worker, positioning herself in front of him so that the runners, as they're coming across, it helps to divert the runners from running into them. And then what I do as a photographer, and this is all stuff you just learn over the years as you work there. So what I do is you'll see the angle change here. I will then go in front of her and act as another kind of diversion cone, as you will, so that the runners, because I'm a big guy. I had I had this hat on that you see me here editing with right here. So I'm going to position myself as a photographer in front of the SSM health worker, so that one, they're not blocking my shot, but two, the runners, as they're crossing the finish line, are going to see me more, and then they'll divert to the left or right, giving them some space to work. So now I'm in front of that lady here. I've moved myself up a little bit. That's a blurry shot. Get rid of that. Pace runners, very important. He was playing to the camera. He saw me and he's coming down, playing to the camera. Love it. Look at that right there. What a shot. Love it. and then get to the point to where he does this little kick, jumps up and kicks. A little too close to me though, so I had my long lens on, and this is the best I could do. If I had a wider lens, I'd get the whole thing. It's a good, I like the expression there from this runner, 614. A little soft. There we go. Okay, so I did get one right after that's in focus. So this one here we can get rid of. That one's soft again. Got rid of that one. Get rid of this one here, because here we've got the running pose, and then we've got the peace signs on both sides. That's a soft image. Get rid of that. Again, any team that comes through and they're holding hands, you know, there's going to be some emotional stuff. Soft. So this is, you know, the editing process. You can see how it takes a long time. And as a photographer, you do try to kind of pre-edit as you shoot, knowing, you know, what you have, because you're taking a look at your shots every once in a while to see if you have any issues with the camera. And, you know, you try to balance shooting enough and having extras versus not having enough at all. But if you're going to err on one side, it's always to err and shoot more than you need, because you can't go back and recreate any of this. Almost two identical shots there, so we got rid of one. And if you think just in terms of marketing and the job of what we were doing there as photographers, it's always a good sign when you're finishing and you're getting photos of people with some nice smiles, that they're like, hey, they're enjoying running 26.2 miles on their Sunday morning. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's not my thing. But kudos to these runners that are able to do something like this. Again, runners, walkers, runners who end up walking, walkers who end up running a little bit, all sorts of people. There's an example here of, I mean, the whole sequence of this runner here, depending on how you package this up, could be great photos. So we're going to keep all of these. Soft spot for the big bearded guys, all right? This runner finishing and picking up his youngest kid to carry her across. Get rid of that. You see that one there? I mean, that's fine. If that's all I had of her, I'd be happy to keep this one, but that's a better photo than this one. That one's a good one too. That's better. A little too much in shade. We'll get rid of that. Thumbs up and smiles are always a good thing. 21. 3. And then you make notes as you come across some too. So that's a good one there. Excuse me. Emotional face. That's always a good thing. Flags upon flags. And even though that, you know, the facial expressions, I can't see her eyes or whatever, but I'm keeping these two because they're different enough, and it's a good strong running pose here on the photo. I'm going to keep it. I can totally see a marketing thing on this. Again, I want to provide options, but not you're conscious of overwhelming with too many. It's a funny one there. We'll keep those. Oh, blurry. So I'm hoping that at the very least, after culling through photos on this first pass, that we are going to get down to under 2,000 photos. I would love to get down even more if I can. Neat thing, we had a runner, and you'll see it here coming up, this Daniel. This is his 50th state that he's run a half marathon in. So I believe that he was going to be in Guinness World Records after today. And then he was interviewed right before the race started. Dress up as a cow. I'm going to try to get you in your outfits. More Daniel photos. This kid here was kind of funny. I'm here for the milk. With a little cat head on. That's a stronger photo there. That's a good one there. And I don't think that he ran with that on the entire time. I think that's one you start with, and then you run, walk most of it without it on, and then you put it back on for the end. Okay, so we see the face. Mom and her daughter coming in. Very strong photo. Keep those. Again, you're looking for emotional interactions with runners. And this, you know, as you cross, you're looking out for the big hugs. Here's Daniel coming through. Big entourage around him. And unless any of these are blurry, I'm just going to keep all of them. This is a cool thing to have happen. There at the end, he gets his medal, a special trophy. I'm going to delete a few that are really just identical. And then here you can see I switched to my wide angle lens. I carry, so I'm shooting with one. I've got my backpack on that has all my gear. But then I have a special camera belt that I have my, I can switch my lenses pretty quickly. Quick enough. And so we went to a wide angle because I knew I was going to be shooting this for a while. I was just on super burst mode, just so that I made sure I had enough. So I'm gonna have to delete a few. Big group shot. That's a good one there. So, and then I think they went into hands up. Make sure I have one of the, okay, that one there. Again, making sure that we get photos of the sponsors working with the runners. And then it's a matter of, because I'm not having to make sure I shoot all the runners that come through the finish line, I'm able to kind of float around and get different areas, different locations, different looks. Down by the river. That's a little blurry. Get rid of this. Another angle of the finish line. Blurry. Volunteers, always very important for events like this. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Hand holding, again. It's always a good sign. Blurry, blurry. Good, good. Get rid of these, almost similar. And again, you can see some of the runners, you recognize that you just shot them from a certain area, and they've had to go, just depending on how the route goes. So they have to go down and around, but you're able to go back. You end up shooting them multiple times. This is a great moment here. I don't know the relationship here, but everyone just burst into tears. More of the SSM Health people. And that is the last one. So we have gotten rid of quite a few. So let's see here. Delete, rejected. How many? Got rid of 906. So those are gone. So now we are down. So we went from basically 2,500 photos to now we have 1,600, which is still quite a bit, but we are now ready to start kind of fine tuning the editing on the runners. So we've gotten rid of all the really bad, redundant photos, and we are going to be ready to further narrow down as we're going, and then kind of get to where we can edit. And again, the good thing about Lightroom Classic is You can batch edit. So basically I can go through on something like this one here. It's all the same kind of lighting. So I can go through and edit one of them and just copy that edit among all of these that I took this similar angle, similar lighting to, and then it'll edit all of them within seconds. So that's always a good thing to have. So that is the first step of the editing process when you're doing large group, large event photography. So this was basically the culling process to get us down to a more manageable number. Went from 2,500 down to 15. And if you're curious about anything else, if you're a photographer looking to get into the business, you're curious about my workflow, let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to see specifically on what I do here. But that was the beginning of my workflow for events like this. So I hope that was somewhat entertaining for you. You kind of get an idea of what I do. I've got some video that I took for the race director. We got that sent off to her already, but this is primarily what my guys are there for, is for the marketing photos so that they can put together material to advertise for down the road. So hope you had a good time here. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one.